Hey there, ready to dive into some seriously wild tech?
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the future of AI identity and a company making big waves with a bold plan.
It's like something straight out of science fiction, but it's happening right now.
Okay, so picture this, a world where everyone has a digital ID verified by an orb that scans your iris. Sound crazy.
Sounds kind of wild, right?
Well, that's the vision Worldcoin, or should I say World Network, unveiled at their event in San Francisco.
And it's about more than just a name change. Dropping coin broadens their scope. It's not just about cryptocurrency anymore. It's about building a connected network on a global scale.
Right. They went all out announcing a new high-tech orb, a revamped super app, and even their own blockchain.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot to process, so we're here to break it down for you.
What's fascinating is how they're positioning themselves. They're not just building tech, they're tackling the fundamental question of what it means to be human in a digital age.
It's like they're saying, in a world of AI, how do you prove you're actually human? And their answer is eye scans?
Exactly. That's where the orb comes in. They've developed this futuristic-looking sphere that uses iris scanning technology to create a unique digital identifier for each person.
So no more CAPT CHAs with blurry pictures of crosswalks. It's straight to the eyeball scan.
Well, it's more sophisticated than it sounds. They claim the iris scan is encrypted, and they don't store the actual image, just a unique code linked to your World ID. Think of it like your digital fingerprint, but for proving you're you in the digital world.
Okay, that makes sense. But they didn't just stop at a new name and a fancier orb. They also revamped their app, right?
Absolutely. World App 3.0 is designed to be the central hub for everything on the World Network. Your World ID, your digital wallet, and now they're adding mini apps.
Mini apps. So it's an app within their app. What can these mini apps do?
Think of it like an app store built into their platform. It lets other developers create apps that integrate directly with the World Network. So imagine things like payments, social networking, even government services, all potentially accessible through their app.
Wow. So they've got the orb for identity, the app as the central hub, and then they casually dropped a bombshell about a blockchain.
Right. Almost like an afterthought, but it's a significant piece of the puzzle. They're calling it World Chain, and it's designed to handle the massive scale of transactions they're anticipating as more people join the network.
And this is where their cryptocurrency, WLD, comes into play.
Exactly. They're incentivizing people to verify their humanity and participate in the network by offering WLD tokens. They're essentially betting that in a world increasingly run by AI, proving you're human will have real value.
Interesting. So by getting your eye scanned, you're essentially earning digital currency,
Yeah.
really leaning into this idea of a new digital economy.
Yeah.
But they also announced something called World ID credentials. What's that all about?
It's their way of bridging the gap for people who can't easily access an orb or might be hesitant about iris scanning technology.
So would they just give everyone a free pass?
Yeah. Not exactly. They're focusing on passports because they're globally recognized. World ID credentials would allow people to link their passport to their World ID profile, verifying their identity in a more traditional way.
Okay, so it's like a stepping stone connecting the old way of proving your identity to their new system. But why passports specifically?
Because they're standardized and accepted globally. They talk about using this for age verification or proving your nationality without revealing your actual identity, just that you are who you say you are.
So I could prove I'm old enough to buy a lottery ticket without showing my driver's license. That's pretty interesting. But what about the security and privacy concerns around all of this? They're asking for a lot of trust.
You're right, and they know it. They're trying to get ahead of those concerns with things like advanced encryption and what they're calling World ID Deepface, an AI-powered system designed to prevent fraud.
So they're using AI to fight potential AI-generated fraud. That's kind of poetic in a way. But even with all the tech, it's hard not to be at least a little wary about handing over so much personal information.
It's a legitimate concern, and it's something we need to be talking about. The technology is moving fast, and there are always potential downsides. But we'll delve into those deeper a little later.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, right? The global digital identity iris scans a super app. It's like we're walking into the plot of a sci-fi movie. But this isn't fiction. This is really happening.
And that's what makes it so compelling to unpack. It's easy to get caught up in the how of it all, the tech specs, the features, the tokens. But what's more important is the why. Why is World Network doing this, and what are the potential implications, both positive and negative?
Right, because with any new technology, especially something this ambitious, there are always two sides to the coin. So let's dive into that. Let's talk about the potential benefits first. What does World Network say they're trying to achieve with all of this?
They're framing it as a way to create more equitable and accessible world. Think about it with a World ID. everyone could have a digital identity regardless of where they live or their economic status.
So no more barriers to accessing things like financial services or online platforms.
Mhm.
That could be a game changer for a lot of people, especially in underserved communities.
That's the idea. They're also emphasizing the potential for increased security and reduced fraud. In a world where identity theft is rampant, having a tamper-proof digital ID could be incredibly valuable.
And they're not just talking about individual benefits. They also believe this technology could revolutionize how we interact with businesses and governments.
Exactly. Imagine a world where you could vote online, securely access government services seamlessly, or verify your age without having to carry around physical documents. It could streamline so many aspects of our lives.
Okay, that all sounds very futuristic and utopian, but let's be real. What are the potential downsides?
Yeah.
They're asking people to trust them with incredibly sensitive information.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Because with great power comes great responsibility, and this technology has the potential to be misused.
Exactly. We've already talked about privacy concerns, but there's also the issue of control. Who ultimately controls this network, and what happens if that power falls into the wrong hands?
It's a valid concern. If our digital identities are tied to this system and that system is compromised, the consequences could be significant. And then there's the question of data security. What happens if there's a breach?
Right, because we've all seen how data breaches can have real-world consequences. And what about the potential for discrimination or exclusion? Could this technology inadvertently create new barriers for certain groups of people?
These are all questions we need to be asking. It's not enough to just marvel at the technological innovation. We need to be having critical conversations about the potential risks and ethical implications.
Especially if this is going to be the foundation for a new digital economy, as they're suggesting. We need to make sure it's built on principles of fairness, transparency, and accountability.
Absolutely. It's about finding the right balance between progress and protection, between harnessing the power of technology while safeguarding our fundamental rights and freedoms.
And that balance is going to look different in different parts of the world with different cultural norms and values.
Exactly. This isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's going to require ongoing dialogue and collaboration between technologists, policymakers, and the public to ensure that these systems are developed and implemented responsibly.
It's a lot to think about. And it's not just about the technology itself, but the potential societal shifts it could bring about.
Exactly. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we think about identity security and our place in a digital world.
And as with any major technological shift, there will be unintended consequences, both positive and negative. It's up to us to be informed, engaged, and to ask the tough questions to shape the future we want to see.
It's like we're standing at a crossroads,
Hmm.
facing a future that could look radically different from the world we know today.
And the path we choose as individuals and as a global society will determine the direction we take.
What's fascinating is that World Network isn't shying away from these big questions, at least not entirely. They're actively framing this technology as a solution to some of the world's most pressing problems.
Like economic inequality, digital identity, and access to essential services.
Exactly. They're painting a picture of a future where everyone has a digital footprint, where access to financial services isn't a privilege, and where we can move seamlessly through a digital world.
It's a compelling vision, but as we've discussed, it's not without its risks. And this rebrand from Worldcoin to World Network feels like a deliberate attempt to shift the narrative.
Absolutely. They're moving away from the language of cryptocurrency and towards a broader message of connectivity and inclusion.
It's savvy marketing for sure,
Yeah.
but it also raises the stakes. By positioning themselves as the architects of this new digital world, they're inviting scrutiny not just of their technology, but of their motives and their values.
And that's where the conversation needs to happen. We can't just talk about the technical aspects of iris scans and blockchains. We need to be talking about the ethical frameworks, the social contracts, and the potential consequences of handing over so much control to a single entity.
It's about asking ourselves what kind of future we want to create. Do we want a future where our digital identities are centralized, controlled, and potentially monetized by corporations? Or do we want a future where we have more autonomy, transparency, and control over our own data?
And those aren't easy questions to answer. There's no simple solution, no magic bullet. It's going to require thoughtful consideration, open dialogue, and a willingness to engage with complex issues.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about World Network. They're just one player in a much larger technological shift that's already underway.
A shift towards a world where our digital lives are increasingly intertwined with our physical realities.
And how we navigate that intersection, how we balance innovation with responsibility, will determine the kind of future we create for ourselves and for generations to come.
So as you're thinking about all of this, here's a question to ponder. What would a responsible and ethical implementation of this technology look like? What safeguards would need to be in place? And who gets to decide?
Those are the deep dive questions we should all be asking. Because the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we shape together through the choices we make and the conversations we have. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of World Network. It's a complex and rapidly evolving landscape, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it. Until next time, keep asking the tough questions and keep diving deeper.